Welcome back to my football pie series. If this is your first episode, you have missed a few episodes. This is actually episode 8. So if you are watching this episode and this is the first episode, make sure you go back and watch all the other episodes, because in this episode, I'm going to be talking about a slice of my football pie when it comes to assessing my football teams. One of the things you will realize is all of these different things share a little bit. And if you can decide if your team is going to win, lose, if you think your team is a good football team, all of those things is what this is all about. So if this is your first video, I want to encourage you to go watch the other videos, save this in your watch later, and go watch the other videos and then come back to this video. But if you are here for this video and you are here for the end, this is the negatives. These are all the negative things that I can think of that will happen to your football team. Now, before I get into this video, I want to call out here. There are a ton of negative things that can happen to your football team. It's not just this list that I'm presenting to you. However, what this list is going to talk about are the main things that you can actually measure so that you can understand if you should count those things as a negative against your actual team's overall performance. I hope that makes sense, because remember, the reason why I'm making this series is because these are all the things I noticed in my team this year. And when I noticed these specific things that I'm going to talk about with the negatives that happened with my team, the chances were very high that we lost those games. So I am talking about how all of these different things are negatives and how they will impact your team. So I am going to get into the other side of this video and share a little bit about the negative things that I am going to call out in my pie. A couple of reminders. I am going through the word patterns. That is my word. So I have a pie. A piece of this pie is a piece of how I assess my football team. So something to remember. The other thing when thinking about negatives are these are things that can drag your team down. These are things that will move your team in the wrong direction. And honestly, these are things that can impact the outcome of a game. So without further ado, let me start talking about a couple of these things. The first thing should be no surprise to anybody is going to be penalties. Anytime your team has a lot of penalties or your team is penalty prone, it will negatively impact your team. There is hardly ever scenarios where you will say, oh, we had 10 penalties, that's great. Or, oh, we had 7 penalties, well, that's great. That's great for us. You will never say that, because anytime you get penalties, it moves you in the opposite direction of the direction that you're trying to go to. And so, or it moves you into the direction that you're trying to prevent a team to get to. So anytime you have a team that you notice has a lot of penalties, you need to pay attention, because this is something that can drag the team down. So as I talk about the equalizers, again, if you have a turnover, it's a problem. If you notice that your team is getting a lot of penalties, that is also a problem. The other thing to consider here, at least for me, is I can think about Texas, because Texas was highly penalized this year. I can also think about Colorado, because Colorado was very highly penalized this year. I can also go back and look at the games that the Steelers lost and see that they had more than average penalties. And so that's an issue. Another issue is when penalties impact your scoring drive and penalties impact your momentum. So penalties are a negative. So if you are cheering for a football team that you notice gets a lot of penalties, that is not good. The one thing I will call out here is I always say, every football team has different margins for error. Some teams have higher margins for error because they're really good football teams. Some teams have a low margin for error. If you're a football team that you're kind of average at best and you have a lot of penalties, this is going to take down your team's chances of winning the game, because you will always do something that will cause you to move in the wrong direction. So that's the first thing. So penalties, a highly penalized team is going to be the first negative that will drag your team down. No matter how you slice it, no matter how much you want to make it okay, you can't make it okay. I'm just popping in here to say, hey, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Why are you watching content and you're not subscribed to my channel? Do me a solid, subscribe to my channel, like the video, and I will disappear from your screen and I will let you get into your video. The other thing is not being able to stop the run. It should come as no surprise why I'm saying that not stopping the run is going to drag your team down. But the most important thing is that you can't control the clock. And I am a big proponent on if you cannot control the clock, it's going to be hard for you to control the game. So if you are cheering for a team that gives up a ton of rushing yards and you could not stop the run, good luck. I think stopping the run is one of the basic tenets of winning a football game. I don't know where that's located. I don't know if there's there's a Bible, if there's somewhere that says that, I don't really know. But in my opinion, one of the basic tenets of winning a football game is you have to be able to stop the run. You have to be able to run the ball and you have to be able to stop the run. Usually when you cannot stop the run, you cannot win the football game unless it's like 70-77. We don't see a lot of high scoring games like that, but stopping the run is very important. And if you're cheering for a team that you notice that cannot stop the run, that is going to be a negative. There's nothing you can do about a team that can't stop the run because that team can't control the clock. That team is basically just waiting for the other team to score, and they're hoping that their offense can come back on the field and score points. So the second thing I'm going to mention here is stopping the run. If you are cheering for a team that cannot stop the run, that is 100% a negative thing. The third thing I'm going to say here is protecting the quarterback. And yes, it's obvious why you want to protect the quarterback. However, I think whenever you are watching a team and you notice your quarterback continues to go down or continues to get sacked or continues to get pressure, you lose a lot of momentum, mainly because the defense starts changing their personality. When the defense knows that they can go hunt down your quarterback, it's just demotivating. It doesn't look good. You lose momentum. And no matter what we want to say, we never want to see our quarterback go down. So if you cannot protect the quarterback, if you don't have a good ability to protect the quarterback, that is also a negative. So when I'm looking at my teams and I'm like, okay, Texas is playing against North Carolina. Okay, Texas should be able to protect our quarterback. Okay, cool. Texas should be able to stop the run. Okay, cool. Texas should not have a lot of penalties, right? Like that's how these are coming into fruition when you're looking at your team. And so I think it's very important for your team to be able to protect your quarterback, not only because of the obvious, because you want your quarterback to have time and things like that, but for momentum. I think whenever your quarterback is continuously getting sacked, it is a negative because it impacts the team and it impacts the momentum. And the worst case scenario is it gives the other team a lot of momentum. And the other team really has no concern over what you're doing on offense because they know they can get to your quarterback. And if they can get to your quarterback, they can neutralize you. And you don't want to be neutralized in a football game. Fourth thing I'm going to say here is being able to get off the field on third down and being able to stay on the field on third down. So third down efficiency. So how efficient are you on third down on offense and how efficient are you on third down on defense? If you look at the good teams usually can get off the field on third down or stay on the field on third down, depending on if they're on offense or defense. So for me, whenever you can't do either, whenever you're a team that cannot stay on the field on third down, so you cannot convert on third downs, and whenever you're a team that cannot get off the field on third down, that is a negative because that tells me that you can A, not sustain drives, and B, you cannot end drives. And both of those things are negatives. So when I am assessing my team and when I'm assessing my football team, this is a stat I can go find. How were we in that game on third down conversion rates? Or how was the team we were playing against on third down conversion rates? The other thing I use this for is when I'm researching the teams that my team is going to play, I will always go look at their third down efficiency and I will always go see how they play on third down. The thing that's sticking out to me in my head right now is Vanderbilt at one point was very high in third down conversion rate, and I believe Arizona State was very high in conversion rates. So again, if you're playing against a team that is very high in conversion rates, or you're very good at converting on third down, or whatever that is, you have to factor that into how you assess your football team. Third down efficiency is one of those things that I feel like a lot of people don't often talk about. Sometimes they do when the game is over, but they don't always talk about it before the game happens. So in my personal opinion, third down efficiency is almost like a little bit of secret sauce, where if you go do this research and if you learn more about this research, it will kind of give you like a little bit of heads up about what type of team that you're about to play. Because if this team that you're about to play usually does well on third down conversion rates, you know, you kind of have to pay attention to that. So that's one thing. The other thing I'll call out here is poor execution. And specifically what I'm saying about poor execution is getting behind the sticks. And usually what happens when you get behind the sticks is there's usually a penalty that moves you behind the sticks. Usually a running back, could go backwards. The offensive line isn't blocking. A quarterback scrambles, or a quarterback gets sacked. Like all of these different things that cause you to get behind the sticks is a negative. A way to assess this negative is if you feel like you're watching your team and it's always first and 15, first and 10, or second and 10, or third and 12, right? And you're behind the sticks, you will start to realize that this is not a great thing, because it's going to be even harder for you to convert first down if you're constantly behind the sticks. So something to consider here is penalties will get you behind the sticks. Players not being able to execute will also get you behind the sticks. So I think getting behind the sticks, again, is one of those things that we probably don't talk about a lot. And it's very hard to kind of find these stats unless you know what you're looking for. But you want to look for, how long does a team usually have to go on second down? How long does a team usually have to go on third down? First down, we all know it's first and 10, right? But if usually my average of first downs is first and 15 or first and 12, that is telling me that my team is usually behind the sticks. So you don't want to be behind the sticks. You want to move ahead of the sticks. So having said all of these things, like I said at the beginning, these are all the negative things that can happen to your football team. These are all the negative things that you need to look for when you are assessing your football team. Now, obviously, I totally understand that 11 guys playing on offense and 11 guys are playing on defense. So all the technique and all the different things, obviously, all of those things can be considered as negatives as well. However, it's very hard for you to track those negative things. And so I am trying to make this series and give you things that you can actually track. So whether you can actually track these things with statistics, whether you can actually track this with your eye test, however you choose to track, I wanted to put things that you can track. Yes, some people will break down film and they'll be like, oh, he should have ran this route. The truth is, we don't know what route he should have ran because no one is telling us what the actual play call was. So that is why I like to use tangible things that I can actually touch, that I can actually gauge, and that I can actually use my own lens and use my own thing of what I think is going on. The funny thing about all these negatives, in a lot of ways, it really comes down sometimes to just a lack of discipline and a lack of being able to control the things you're supposed to control, and a lack of doing your job, quite frankly. And so a lot of these, again, some people would say are controllable. Sometimes they're not, but there's 11 guys on the field. And so all 11 guys have to be doing their job. But if you start to notice that all 11 guys on the field don't usually do their jobs, and there's a lot of penalties, and you can't stop the run, and you can't execute, you start to notice all these things, keep those as a mental note when you are assessing your football team, because it will come out. It will come out in stats, and it will come out with your eye test. And that is why I always tell people, make sure that you're paying attention to your teams. Make sure that you trust your eye test. Make sure that you are comparing your team to other teams so that your eye test starts to make sense. Don't just assume that your team does everything right and your team's going to win because you have the best athletes, because that is not always the case. Teams don't usually win because they have the best athletes. Teams actually usually lose because of some of the things that I've pointed out in this negative section. And I will just leave that where it's at. So this concludes everything in the negative section. The next section that we're going to talk about is going to be the final letter, and it's going to be S, and it's going to be all things situational. So not all things situational, but main things situational that I feel like impact me whenever I'm assessing my football teams. And so I can't wait to bring that episode to you. If you haven't already, make sure you like this video, comment on this video, make sure that you're subscribed to my channel, and make sure you turn on those notification bells so you do not miss the next installment, or really the last installment as far as the patterns go. So as always, I will see you in my next video.